All right, welcome to the 2022 CIE Seattle Chapter Asian American Luminary Award Seminar Series. So we have, so today is our actually number 2 seminar of the series. We had a great successful seminar last week. So just a few housekeeping items. Please turn off the video and audio for all the audience. And the moderator and the panelists, please keep your video and audio on. For the audience, please post the questions through the chat window or chat text, and that will be addressed during we have a Q&A session by the moderator after the presentations. And then the seminar will be recorded and posted online later. So if if you don't want to be posted, please excuse yourself. We have a greeting letters from the governor. That's so from the Washington State Governor Jay Inslee. So many thanks to the governor's office. We have so they have a greeting to our the seminar series from both last Saturday and this Saturday. So this is the flow of today's seminar. We have so first of all, I'm the host. My name is Fei Kai. I'm AALA co-chair and also the board director of the CIE Seattle chapter. I'll give just 5 to 10 minutes of introduction of the CIE, the AALA, and some logistics of today's flow. And then I'll hand it over to our moderator, Dr. Deng. And then we'll have the 3 great panelists, Dr. Rob Wang, Dr. Cha Zhang, and Rachel Wang, for each of their topics. And then we'll have 30 to 40 minutes of Q&A, so please either hold your questions or text the questions so we can make sure get them answered. And then also please stay till the end that we just save a few minutes for a virtual group photo with the AALA awardees from today. So a little bit history about CIE. So it's Chinese Institute of Engineers. So it is a nonprofit organization, mainly that's promoting the professional and academic excellence in the Asian American community. The organization was established in New York in 1917. Currently, there are 7 local chapters. So we have Seattle, New York, San Fran, Dallas, Fort Worth, New Mexico, Southern Cal, and OCESA. One of our main event is one of the known one, I should say, is the Asian American Engineer of the Year, or the AEOY. And then as far for the Seattle chapter, we have many different programs throughout the year. So some of the known ones are Asian American Luminary Award, the Engineering Seminar, the annual convention. We have a youth scholarship program, and there's also the youth, the math comp and science fund. And then we have an educational program is usually we have a seminar for Road to College for the future college students and parents to learn how to get there. And then there's also the college mentorship program. We have UW is one of our programs. So if you are interested to join our organization or participate in our organization, feel free to reach out to one of us, or there's the link is posted. So feel free to browse through our website for any additional information. Asian American Luminary Award. So this is really one of our flagship program. It's a platform to honor and celebrate outstanding Asian American professionals and leaders with high achievements and contributions in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics within the Pacific Northwest. And we are honored to have 3 of the AALA awardees from last year, Dr. Rob Wang, Dr. Zhang, and Richard Wang, to give us a seminar today. And also, we would like to thank all of our judges of the 2021 AALA program. Our judge committee chair was Professor Ji Hui Yan. He's the Vice Dean of College of Engineering from UW. Mr. Conrad Lee and Ms. Janice Zhang, both Bellevue City Council members, and also Dr. Tia Benson To. She's a senior director of Boeing. And we're definitely really appreciate all of the nominators and the candidates that are participating in this program as well. So today's seminar is so it's the number 2 of the series for the AALA seminar series. It's how to go beyond individual excellence to the next level as leaders. And our panelist is Rob Wang, Zhang, and Richard Wang, and the moderator is Dr. Deng. And it's my honor to introduce Dr. Deng to you. That Dr. Deng was Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at Citadel America, one of the most successful hedge funds in the world. Before that, he was Chief Scientist of AI, Head of AI School, and Head of Deep Learning Technology Center at Microsoft. Currently, he's advising several AI startups in Silicon Valley, working from home in the Seattle area. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Deng.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me to moderate this panel. So it's my great pleasure to introduce 3 outstanding engineers to the audience. So let me have a very brief introduction to 3 of them, and then I'm going to pass the floor to 3 of the all 3 awardees for each of them to share with you their views about everything that they want to talk about. They actually, each of them chose their specific topic, which are dear to my heart, hopefully to the audience heart as well. So I think the first speaker is going to be Robert, right? The first generation Chinese immigrant growing up in Arkansas. And he has been fascinated about how we interact with the computers and how improving these interactions can empower us. He's currently with Meta. So let's welcome Robert to share with us his favorite topic. Yeah, floor is yours, Robert.
Thank you, Dr. Deng. And thanks everyone for attending this talk and spending some of your Saturday morning with us. So my name is Rob. I think there was already an introduction, but I will also introduce my work just a little bit. I'm known for my work on hand tracking, which is using a technique in computer vision to understand what your hands are doing and apply that for human-computer interaction. And I've worked on this as a graduate student, as a startup founder, CEO, and as an industry researcher, a research manager, and as engineering manager. So while I think I received an entrepreneurship award, I probably was only considered for this award because of my contributions across the stack, from ideation to research to commercialization, and ultimately deploying the work at scale. I also want to say I'm a beginner. Many of you in the audience will maybe have more experiences or at least different experiences than me. CIE is a community, and I hope to learn from others while sharing some of my own stories. And these are just stories. Take what I have to say with a grain of salt. I'm not a subject matter expert in personal career development. The prompt of this session is about going beyond individual technical excellence to the next level as a leader. And I think this is a prompt that many of us can relate to as Asian American engineers. Certainly when I was a kid, my parents encouraged me to study math, science, engineering, and I did that. I got a degree in computer science from Carnegie Mellon and then continued with a PhD in computer science at MIT. And I certainly took pride in technical excellence, and being an engineer is still part of my identity. But I attribute getting to the next level as a leader to several decisions I've made. And in each of these cases, I think I took a risk and I stepped outside of my comfort zone. And I can share 3 of these moments briefly. The first moment was when I was in grad school. And at the time, I joined a computer graphics lab when I started my PhD at MIT. And after my master's thesis, which is on computer graphics topics, I became fascinated by the potential of tracking the human hand to enable new input and interaction capabilities. I thought, hey, if we could just track the hand very well, maybe we wouldn't even have to hold a pencil to write, for instance. Maybe we wouldn't need a keyboard to type. Maybe we could just use computer vision to infer everything about what your hand was doing and apply that to human-computer interaction. However, tracking the hand is not a computer graphics problem, and it's actually a computer vision problem, which was outside of my domain and outside of my advisor's domain. So no one was working on hand tracking at MIT at the time. There wasn't even a project or a research group I could join. And I remember taking a really long walk with my advisor after lunch and telling him about my thoughts and what I wanted to do and why I thought it was important. And instead of shutting it down, he decided to help me. So I had already worked with him a little bit on grant writing before, and he said, well, let's write a grant together, right? And so we did, and we found a little bit of funding for this project. We started working on this project. I put together a research plan and tried to outline the problems that I needed to solve. And we ended up making a system using a color glove and a webcam that can track your hand. So it's basically something that looks a little bit like this. I'll put it on for a second. So if you wear something like this, it actually makes the computer vision problem much easier. And using a webcam, we can actually understand the motions of your hand and apply that for input. Sorry. When we could apply this to input, I actually meant once we could track your hand, we could apply it to manipulating virtual objects or maybe to robotic control. And we wrote a research paper on this project. And we were lucky to also get a little bit of publicity. So research papers are typically read by academics. And because we got a little bit of media coverage from places like Wired and New Scientist, this got a little bit more visibility than usual and got a little bit of traction. So it became one of the pieces of work that I'm known for. And I wouldn't have happened, none of this would have happened if I didn't leave my field of study and go into something unfamiliar and uncomfortable for me. The second moment that I'll briefly talk about is when I did a startup. So when I got my PhD, most of my friends went into big tech or went into finance or consulting. And these are all great fields, and they all pay quite well. I took no salary for the first year after my PhD. I lived off of savings. I remember distinctly getting a survey from MIT about how much was I getting paid, because they wanted to kind of survey, what the job earnings of some of the recent graduates were. And I'm sure I dragged down the average by having a big fat 0. I moved in with my girlfriend and made her studio apartment my office. And I started advancing my work on hand tracking towards a product. This was not straightforward at all. It was a very winding process. I didn't really know what to do, and I first thought I was going to build some sort of rehabilitation system for people who suffered a stroke, or a medical device of some sort, or something for computer-aided design, for 3D modeling, mechanical engineering. And on the positive side, I think I learned a lot of skills through this process. There were mundane things like how a company is organized, how to do accounting, or how to interview people, or how to do bits of product management. But there were also some pretty uncomfortable moments. especially when I convened with my former classmates and peers and discussed how we were doing. Eventually, I was able to form a team. I raised a couple of rounds of funding. We actually did a Kickstarter where we launched a piece of hardware and software for tracking your hands in virtual reality. And that got us enough traction that Facebook, now called Meta, became interested in us, and we were acquired, actually. Starting a company had plenty of these really uncomfortable moments where I made mistakes, where I had to go outside of my comfort zone, and it was a very formative experience. But it's probably valuable precisely because of these moments, because it forces you to actually go outside of your comfort zone again and again. The third moment I'll just briefly touch upon is when I started productizing my work after working at Oculus for a few years. Oculus was part of Facebook, and I was a research lead there. And actually being a researcher there was quite comfortable. We could work on research. There was actually very little pressure to publish or even to transfer technology over, and at least initially. And but I wanted to actually see if we can make a little bit more impact by taking some of the technology that we had started to incubate and applying it to our products. And to give a little bit of context, there was basically a team that was working on hand tracking on the research side. There was a team that was working on hand tracking on the product side. And neither of us were really big enough to do anything really meaningful by ourselves. We shared some code, we shared certainly ideas, but we also duplicated many paths as well. And the role that I ended up playing was I tried to push these teams to really align and to actually ultimately merge these teams. And this was an uncomfortable thing as a researcher, and it was probably the first moment I really became a manager. Now, I did management things before, like I supported people, I hired people, I interviewed people, so on, right? Which is all part of management. But ultimately, management is really about making sure a group of people are allocated properly to achieve a collective result. And I never really managed the hard stuff, stuff like conflicts, resolving conflicts, and resolving competing teams. And there ended up being many escalations. We ended up spending a lot of time getting to know each other, discussing technical stacks, and building trust in each other. And eventually, we were able to work together and ship a new way of interacting with computers directly with your hands in VR. And actually, this is something you can try today. Okay, thanks, Dr. Zhang. I was about to pull that out. But if you have one of these popular Quest VR devices from Meta, this is a Quest 2 that Dr. Deng just, I think, put on. Yeah, you can actually try this out, and you can interact with your hands and experience that in VR. I know for certain that it wouldn't have happened actually if we didn't take some risks, if we didn't actually step up and try to resolve conflicts between teams and push the organization. And I think all three of these experiences that I just touched upon briefly required stepping outside of at least my comfort zone. One thing that ties these three moments together actually is a long-term goal. And I always knew I wanted to change how people interact with computers. As a PhD student, I saw the birth and success of a new input technology at the time, multi-touch. This is what powers the interaction of the tablet computers, tablet PCs, things like the iPad and the Microsoft Surface and so on. And the thing is, modern multi-touch was probably invented in 2001 in a paper called Diamond Touch at a conference called WIST. It took a decade between publishing that paper and the technology making its way into people's hands. And as a student and entrepreneur, I thought to myself, why so long, right? Why did it take so long? To me, this was obviously such a good and cool idea. It seemed inevitable to make a difference in our products. Why wasn't it in the market sooner? And there are a lot of reasons for this. I mean, one of them is just like the long hardware development process. But at its core, the only way technology really moves forward is because individuals push it forward, from good research ideas to proofs of concept to products. If you have nice ideas or publish nice research, the fastest way to actually realize the impact of this is to push it forward yourself. And ultimately, this is why I chose my research topic, why I did a startup, why I tried to sometimes resolve some organizational conflicts as well in industry. Technology and good ideas are not inevitable most of the time. It takes conscious actors to push through the problems. And I think that's a good reason to step outside in industry. Technology and good ideas are not inevitable most of the time. It takes conscious actors to push through the problems. And I think that's a good reason to step outside of your comfort zone. So I'll end there, and I'll hand it over back to Dr. Deng.
Thank you very much, Rob. Yeah, that was very exciting. Oculus is one of my favorite gadget. My kids and I really enjoy using that. Hoping to to see the next version of that, which is not that heavy. So our next panelist will talk about technical team building by Dr. Chia. Dr. Chia Zhang. So Chia shared with me a Microsoft research for how many years? Maybe more than 10 years before I left to join investment world. So today I'm finally getting a chance to know what, at least update to not only just me, but everybody else about the kind of cool stuff that he and his team has been doing about technical team building. Now the floor is yours, Chia.
Thank you, Lee. Yeah, it's a long time we worked together. It was a fun time. So I'd like to also take this opportunity first to thank the organization, committee, CIE, everyone sort of give me this opportunity. It's really, I feel really humbled to sort of receive this award, given sort of my limited contributions to the research and Asian community. And so just a little bit about myself. I was coming from China. I got my bachelor master degree in China, and then I came to the US, got a PhD in Carnegie Mellon, and then I joined Microsoft. So Microsoft is my first job and sort of also my, I'm still at Microsoft, so it's been 17 years. Back in 2004, when I joined, I was at Microsoft Research, and so that was at that time still, and today still one of the most prestigious computer science sort of research labs. I was there for 12 years, and so until 2016. So my research has been pretty diverse. I'm mostly working on sort of applying machine learning to different topics like computer vision, speech, and all kinds of signals, essentially. I did also spend quite some time working on telepresence and virtual reality, and so so in some way I have some overlap with Robert, although I didn't sort of work on hand tracking, but I work on sort of goggles, virtual 3D reconstruction, etc. And so that was quite fun. And what prompted me sort of to move out of MSR was really that a majority of my work at MSR has been more geared towards sort of real world applications. I'm always sort of, so in MSR, there are two sort of kind of researchers. There are researchers who focus mostly on breaking state of the art and sort of publish groundbreaking papers. And there's another camp of researchers who spend more time sort of working on technology that can actually get into product and shipping to millions of people. And I was always on the other side, on the second type. And so to the point that I finally decided that, well, if I'm trying to change sort of use innovation to change people's life, why I sort of stick with research? Why shouldn't I try sort of on the engineering side? So and at that time there was also sort of a huge popularity on deep learning. It just came out, sort of broke every AI record, and so I joined on the product side and started working on this thing called the CNTK. I don't know how many of you heard about this. This is Microsoft's machine learning, deep learning toolkit. It's not as popular as sort of TensorFlow and and PyTorch, but it was sort of Microsoft's attempt to do deep learning. I was there for about a year and a half, learned quite a lot, and I think at that time I worked with Lee a lot. He was one of the pioneers on deep learning applied in speech. And at that time, my focus was mostly on computer vision. And then I moved to start working on OCR. It's a sort of a not so fancy topic because I think OCR as a computer vision problem has been there for 20, 30 years. And people always ask, is that problem already solved? And the reality is no, it's actually far from being solved. And with sort of the latest deep learning and all these cool technologies, actually OCR has made a significant sort of leap through, and we can recognize things a lot more accurately, even to human level. And then we also work on document understanding, which is sort of trying to extract information out of documents. And this is very useful for sort of robotic automation, accessibility management, etc. So when I joined the product side on OCR, I was actually the only person. So there's just just me working on, and I basically started this group. And so today we have a team of 70 some people sort of working on these two topics. And so if you look at my career, I have been mostly working as an IC, and so my sort of management experience has been relatively short. And also due to the sort of rapid growth of the team, I quickly sort of gone through this iteration from IC and then to a manager that manages a small team, and then to a manager that manages multiple teams. So over time, I have been sort of learning a lot from many experienced managers and reading a lot from different literature's books. So I'm a big fan of Ray Dalio's book Principles. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek, who has always been, talking quite a lot about people first. How when you manage a team, how do you always want to make sure that so people is the most important asset of the team, and how do you make them sort of happy, and that will in turn sort of create productivity. So with this opportunity, I basically want to briefly talk about how to build a successful team, and really a successful team. The definition of it really is like, okay, the team need to be goal oriented. Team member need to be highly motivated, and the members can help each other. We're open to challenges and learning. There's good communication between teams and with partners, and then there's plenty of diverse perspectives and experiences. People are accountable, and then the team makes a high impact for the company. So one of the sort of particular thing I would like to talk about is really this thing called psychological safety. And this is actually quite well known. And there was a Google research project called Project Aristotle that basically ranks different factors in terms of their impact to organizational performance, and psychological safety ranks number one there. And there has been extensive literature sort of links psychological safety to a huge range of human performance. And it considered shown to have a particularly strong impact on performance when collaboration, agility, and then innovations. Study also showed that it accelerates learning and experimentation at individual, team, and organization levels, and it improves the quality of communication feedback. And so the question really is, as a manager, how can you make sure that the team members have psychological safety? And I think there's also a common sort of misunderstanding that sort of making team members being safe with just being nice. Actually, that's quite wrong. Actually, if I look at my team, actually, I really appreciate that within my team, there's actually a lot of conflicts. Right? It happens all the time, and I think it's not really about being endlessly nice and soft within the people. It's actually that the optimal performance happens when there is safety, that people actually have no concern of speaking out, and that's where things can happen. And put it another way, a safe environment really is more challenging. It is safe to allow people to challenge the idea of others and grounded in sort of really good trust between each other. And that's, I think, what the managers need to sort of create as an environment for the team to excel. And so it's difficult for me to provide sort of very concrete examples regarding safety, but I think a lot of things that as managers we pay attention to sort of are really small things. And so things like be very open about not always knowing the answers, being able to share lessons learned from your mistake, ask questions rather than jumping into advice, and taking time to understand what other people need, and then exhibit sort of gratitude when people have behavior you wish to see. And safety really is a lot of sort of very small things. In meetings, notice where people are speaking up, or are they asking questions? Are they challenging your thinkings? I think that is a huge sort of a factor in determining a team's success. So it's highly cultural sort of influenced as well. I think Asian culture, I think team members from Asian background, I notice many times sort of are very quiet, and they sort of think quite differently in terms of what is a good team. And I think we as Asian managers, should spend our effort to encourage more of outspoken and just make them feel safe and make them speak out. I think that's the best way to create a great environment for everyone to excel. So I'll stop here, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Cha. That was a great presentation. I really learned a lot about your latest work. So first of all, congratulations to all three panelists who are recipients of this Asian American Luminary Award. And the previous two panelists have something in common. Maybe there are two things in common. One is that they both are in computer vision and they love to build VR-related devices. Number two, they are both managing big teams into big companies. Now, our third panelist is in contrast with both of the previous panelists, who happens to be as entrepreneur in startup company. I was reading Richard's bio, and then realizing that what his company is doing is very similar to one of the companies I'm currently advising, called CK12 in Silicon Valley. I'd love to learn more about how Richard started your company and how you took the risk in order to reach the next level. Welcome.
I do have a slide deck. I think, let's start from here. I just want to say thank you so much for this award. It is extremely privileged and honored to be here today and to have this award amongst all the other outstanding engineers in the Chinese community. So thank you. First, I just want to say, I want to start with the Coding Dojo mission, which is about transforming lives through digital literacy. Coding Dojo today, we started about back in 2014. Today, we are in 20 different countries. We have 250 employees across the globe. We can start here. We started in Q4 2013. We have about 250 employees across from the globe to help government, university, individual transform their digital capabilities. We provide online education. We provide on-site education. We have full-time programs, part-time programs. We have about 25 different domains that we offer to corporations, from AR, VR, data science, gaming, other digital capabilities. I just want to highlight the 6 that I have here is, web encoding, data science, cybersecurity, UI, UX, product management, blockchain. So let's just give a general overview about Coding Dojo. And today, my talk will be about taking risk. And the risk I took, hopefully that can be used as a reference point at some of your crossroads in your career. You may use as a reference to help you to make better decisions about where you want it to go. And also, I don't have fancy slides. And in addition to that, Faye told me, Richard, I have 15 minutes, so you don't have to go to a point cross. So I'm going to try to do my best job in providing all the data points that I have, and hopefully you can take some of these away, to use however you like to. And just personally speaking, I come here from China when I was 13 years old. I am originally from Dalian, China. And in my family, I'm the first generation of the college. Please go back. Sorry. Go back, please. Sorry. Could you go back to where the slides I was at? And also, I will tell you to move the slides. And so, thank you. In my family, I'm the first generation of the college, first generation that comes to the United States. So just a little bit about me that's there. Next slide, please. So the thing about Coding Dojo is that we deliver digital capability transformation across the globe. And we run accelerated, asynchronous, synchronous bootcamp programs. And then we spend about 10 years in developing our SkillX talent transformation platform. And within our platform, we are able to provide analytics, content management, quality management, instruction management, that which enables hybrid, online, full-time, part-time, transformation as a service capabilities to all the clients across all different sectors. Next slide. And in addition, we invest tremendous amount of capability in AI, machine learning. When I was at MIT doing my graduate work, we partnered closely with the Media Lab, really understanding how do we codify the human learning experience. And right now, we have a patent pending capability, our prediction exam. We capture the human demographic data, psychographic data, and the cognitive capability. As they go through the program, we enhance the data set with the learning behavior data, learner progress data to truly predict each learner's experience. And then they can interject human capabilities before they get stuck to really create a personalized learning experience for each one of our learners. Next slide. And again, for us, we provide bootcamp services, accelerated learning experiences for B2C consumers. We provide for governments. We provide for corporations, Amazon, Microsoft, and also we license our content to universities as well. Next slide. And now I kind of just want to talk about, that was a general sense about Coding Dojo, and now I kind of want to talk about my career. So when I first graduated from university, I spent about 6 years at Boeing. And, for me, it was a great experience for me because this was really giving me a general overview about business itself. And next slide, please. For me, I had a great time. I learned tremendously on strategy in international business. The accounts I was responsible for, Australia, China, Japan, India. I understand the strategies, the politics behind selling airplanes. And I got promoted really fast. I got promoted every single year. And by the end of this, I was the chief of staff to the COO of the organization. It was about 11 billion. I really got to understand how to run a business, how to be an operator. And more importantly, I learned about what not to do. I observed the corporate bureaucracy and different things. I really learned about, hey, if I were running my own business, what are the things I don't want to do? And I think by my 5th year, I just felt really dying on the inside because I know I have so much capabilities to give, but I am stuck. Somehow I am hitting maybe what people call the bamboo ceiling. I was just not advancing anymore. And, I just felt really stuck. And, really there's a thing at Boeing says that if you stay at Boeing for more than 6 years, you become a lifer, which would become a lifetime Boeing employee. And to be honest, I was scared to death. I did not want to do that because I know I had so much more to give. And I have so much more potential, and I really didn't want to just become a spoke in a whale and doesn't have the opportunity to advance. So I really felt stuck. I was like, what do I do next? I really wanted to start my own startup. I had a lot of different ideas. So that was really the genesis of where I was at that time. Next slide. So I have to take a risk. Leaving Boeing, leaving the mothership, I have to take a risk. So definition of a risk means that to do something that might result in a loss, failure. So this is a classic example. Every time you invest money, you're taking a risk. And every single person told me do not do it. And my parents said no, don't do it, right? Because to Chinese parents, this is what they call the iron rice bowl. We call it 铁饭碗. You'll never be able to fight, right? Unless you do something wrong. And then they're like, Richard, we sacrificed so much to send you to the US, go with a big company, it's stable. And all my friends are like, why would you want to go do a startup? You get no pay. Why would you want to join something that has no certainty? At Boeing at the time, we had a pension, we had a 401k, we had all the different benefits. I was making great money and things were stable. To the outside world, as a Chinese immigrant, to my parents, I had it all. But inside, that was just not enough, So I was very much in conflict with myself, what my parents were telling me, what my Chinese values were telling me, but also what the Western values were telling me. I really should pursue what I'm passionate about. So I had a huge conflict every day for nearly about a year about what to do next. Next slide. And so yeah, I was at a crossroad. This is me, and I was stressing out about it, and it kept me up at night, and it's hard for me to fall to sleep sometimes thinking about it. Next slide. And again, just everybody was telling me no, but these are 4 things that really helped me tip to my decision about why I wanted to quit Boeing, quit something stable, go with something that have no salary, going to be like that for a year. Next slide. So one thing is just that, I really thought about, life is a one-way journey. Life is a one-way journey. And we are not ever going to come back to this planet. Once it's over, this is done. And I was looking at this, I was reading this TED Talk, and it was fantastic. It said, the probability of being born a human is 1 in 400 trillion. And I was like, why not me? And then why are there so many Indian CEOs and there's not that many Chinese CEOs? And then why not us? So this was one data point, it's just how short life is. And the beauty of death itself, how that is a feature, not a bug, to make us realize how precious the time that we have on this planet. Next slide. And then the second thing is that, I saw this quote. He said, the graveyard is the richest place on earth because it is here that you will find all the hopes and dreams that was never fulfilled. And I know I had so much more music left. I know I had so much more capabilities. I did not just want to stay at somewhere stable. Next slide. The third thing is that if I was going to work very hard, because I know myself, I work extremely hard, why do I want to create that wealth and opportunity for myself? Next slide. And then last but not least, in China, I'm like a lot of the Chinese kids here that I grew up with my grandparents. These are my grandparents. And my father and mother was working in a different city. They were working full time in Dalian. I grew up in the city of Fushun. And my grandparents raised me. And when I was 21 years old, both of my grandparents passed away. And I did not know they passed away. But these guys sound like my parents. And then why I get really angry, I asked my family in China why that is. My grandmother said, look, do not tell Richard, because if you guys tell him that he will miss school to come back to China and that he will miss school, I don't want him to miss school. So they made a tremendous sacrifice for me to get here. And that was really the tipping point, like, man, if the people, this village is supporting making so much of this sacrifice, I owe it to them, owe it to myself to take the risk to manifest what is possible, what is my potential. That was really making me like, what, forget about this. Life is too short. I got to do something that aligns with my values, that is authentic to me, that is my truth. Next slide. So I took the risk. Next slide. So I took the risk. We started here in Bellevue, in the middle of nowhere, in this what they call a woody walk-up. It's a 1,500 square feet place. And next slide. We built a platform, and then we were teaching people in this space in the middle of nowhere in Bellevue, 15 seats. And that was the start of life. I wasn't paid for about a year, and we were just trying to get by and trying to make it. Next slide. Microsoft had a meeting with us, and I was so embarrassed. We actually said, "Oh, don't come to our mere office space. I mean, let's meet us at WeWork," because I didn't want to give a wrong impression of like we're in the middle of nowhere. And then just you do everything yourself. We were putting the doors, knobs on, and just everything. It's all up to you at the time. Next slide. And then we grew tremendously. We went from the 1,500 square feet, we went to, and then we grew. We went to downtown Bellevue in this space. We got a 5,000 square feet floor. And next, we got a first floor of the building. And then the next thing you know, a year later, we actually rented the entire building in downtown Bellevue. If you don't, this is a Surrey building right across the street from H Mart when this was there. Now they're tearing this down to build a skyscraper. So the companies grew tremendously over about a time of 2 years. Next slide. And then we expanded to California, Burbank, California, and then in 2 years we had a hyper growth. We went from 1 million to 10 million in 2 years. We had 1,000% growth within the company in revenue. Next slide. And then just in terms of competitive landscape at the time, everybody was raising tremendous amount of money. GA was raising like 100 million based on $400 million valuation. A lot of my competitors raising like about 50 million. Coding Dojo, we were just bootstrapped. I think that's one of the key things is that we've really be efficient with the way how we approach the market with a multi-capability platform to be able to really drive the way how we deliver our content and instruction different than our competitors. Next. And then as you can see kind of from 2014 to 2016, we had a hyper growth in terms of 1,000%. Things were going great. One of the things people say is that, when you don't have money, everybody is aligned. It's when you start making money, people have different opinions. So next. What happened, actually go back real quick. I forgot about this. I want to say is that in 2017, I was fired from my job in 2017. And we just had, between me and the board, we just totally had two different visions about how we achieved the business. Although we had a tremendous high growth of 1,000% in 2017, they were just a divisive vision in the way how we want to grow. And so, it was a very tough time for me, and it was. I think I almost went into depression because I give everything to this business for the past 3 years. Build it from nothing to today, and then getting fired from the very thing that I built, and that was just. It really just hit me extremely hard. Not just I have to manage, the expectation of the market, the competitive landscape, but also manage expectation from the board and different stakeholders. And so that was very, very tough. Next slide. And then I took a break. I went to this place called Nosara in Costa Rica. It was one of the top 10 blue zones in the world. What it means is that, people can live above 100. And then I took about 3 months off. And the next slide. I learned about how to surf, loved it. It's a great way to, get your mind off things. And they have these boot camps there for surfing. It was fantastic. Next slide. And then I found a job at Trupanion. I was their vice president of marketing and sales. They're a NASDAQ publicly traded company, about much smaller compared to all the major cap companies out there, about $250 million a year. But I think this experience actually really taught me a lot about how to scale in startup and going to a corporate that's being publicly traded, and about scaling the business. And at the same time, while I was here, I really just felt business going so much faster. I'm thinking so many undercurrent forces that I get to approach problems that I don't quite have a language for. I don't know how to describe them, but I can feel the forces of internal things, external things. I was like, what do I want to do? So I decided maybe it's time for me to go get an MBA. And so next slide. And out of all the programs I researched, I really felt MIT was the place I wanted to be, because how tech-centric MIT is, because how collaborative the amazing community is, and it's just incredible people. And MIT has this always open door policy. You get to talk to all the different academics, researchers, Nobel laureates, and also the access to the MIT Media Lab between the students to research. It's just incredible. So I've been there for about 2 years, and this was really, for me, it was my life-changing experience to understand the models, how business worked, and the management science side of things. And so I went there for about 2 years, and it was just an incredible experience for me. And then after I graduated, next slide, it's time for me to take a risk again. And at that time, it was, I think it was about 2019. I was checking, although I'm not part of the company, but I'm still a major shareholder at Coding Dojo. So I was checking with the board about, hey, how is the company doing, and how are the things we need to do? And the board actually at that time said, look, we didn't quite grow at the way how we wanted to with the strategy we took. Richard, if you want to come back, we would love to invite you to come back to lead the business. So I was asked to go back. Next slide. And I said, could you share me with the financials? This is the real numbers. And as you can kind of see, the company revenue, the blue bar is the revenue, the gray bar is the cost, and the black it was the cash. So as you can see, the cost was twice as high as our revenue, and the cash is being degraded over time. And so this was March, and they're like, man, if you want to come back, now is the time to come back. And so, and then you was in a very dire situation. We probably had a month of revenue left. This is in 2019. Next slide. And then again, once again, I'm at a crossroad again. Do I take this risk or not? Because I talked to all my friends, I talked to all my family, I talked to our previous investment bankers. They're like, Richard, do not go back. This is not the interest you want to be at. Coding Dojo is in no shape right now. You should just let this company die. At that time, because I just graduated from MIT, so I had a lot of opportunities. I could go into consulting. Boston was a biotech hub. I got a few job offers from biotech companies, and right at startup wave, hopefully to go public and whatnot. And so I had a lot of great certain opportunity in front of me. I also have this thing about Coding Dojo again, going back to this uncertainty. What do I do? So once again, everybody was telling me no. But next slide. I took the risk. Next slide. I went back to this wire thing where I started. And of course, it was very different. This is a picture of 2019. So I decided to go back, and it's just been a tremendous experience. And next slide. Over the past 2 years, we grew tremendously. Instead of we really focused on a platform first, data first strategy where we grew from one location. Now we're in 20 different countries. We've been from $1 million valuation to $100 million valuated company now. So that's what taking risk, I would say, and passion get you. And you just been, a tremendous journey from 2014 to today. I was fired. I got asked to come back, turn around the company twice. And this is where it is at today. Next slide. And I just want to, I think for me, I want to close out my presentation with 3 things I want to say here. That this is really important to me, is that it's about taking action. And let me just read this quote. I think this purely describes how I feel about taking action. This quote says that it is important for you to get clear for yourself that your only access to impacting life is action. The world does not care about what you intend, how committed you are, how you feel, or how you think. And certainly it has no interest in what you want and don't want. Take a look at life as it is lived, and see for yourself that the world only moves for you when you act. So always take action. Don't ever be the victim. Be the cause of the matter for yourself and for your life. And the second thing is, I hope everybody can find this in your life, which is that, I love what I do. I feel I'm constantly playing. I don't feel I'm working, which is the master in the art of living makes a little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he's working or playing. To him, he's always doing both. I wish all of you can find this for your life. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Not everybody has the luxury to take the risk. I had the luxury to take a risk. But if you don't have the luxury to take a risk, find what you are passionate about. Find this for you. And then last but not least, life is short. Life is short. I am 37 years old this year. I'm turning 37 this year, October. I'm probably not going to live past 100. I probably have another, say, 55 years left. And then based on the 55 years of life, I'll probably have another 30 years of productivity. I can be productive on this planet. Really find what difference and impact you want to make. And for me, it's that, you know, I want to use Coding Dojo as a vehicle to make a dent on this planet, on this universe for the next 30 years. And thank you. That's my presentation. That's it. And thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful, Richard. Thank you very much for sharing your story. It reminds me of the story of Steve Jobs, who get fired by the board and come back to Apple. That was great. Yeah, I really enjoy your story. I think everybody in the audience will love your story also. Coding Dojo coming back, hoping it become next Apple like Steve Jobs. Anyway, so that actually your story really remind me myself about taking risks. You know, like 5 years ago, I decided to leave Microsoft to do something very adventurous without knowing what's going on. That was the investment war. It turned out to be working really great. But anyway,
awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let's turn the floor back to Fei, right? Or do we keep going with the question answering? Oh yeah, question answering here now. Okay, so the audience, I hope you all enjoy. The three panelists' presentations. And then first of all, again, I would like to congratulate all three of you for getting richly deserved award. That's called the Asian American Luminary Award. Listening to three of your presentations, I really, if I were in the the selection panel, I would select you too. Three of you also. Okay, so I'm going to take the next maybe half an hour or 1 hour time to have question answering for this text question answering session. So I prepare a set of questions for the panelists, and also hopefully some of the audience can participate in this discussion Q&A. Let me ask some of the questions myself first before I open up the floor for the audience. Okay, and one of the questions that I have that is really dear to my heart is something related to to actually even is reflected in the title of our this institute, right? Chinese Institute for Engineers. I noticed that among all three panelists who are the recipients of Asian American Luminary Award, there's one thing in common. Okay, so I commented on something different in the earlier, but now I noticed that the more I listen to the three panelists' presentations, the more I realize, wow, this commonality really struck me. That is, all three of them are a first-generation immigrant from China. Okay, and then when we are talking about our Chinese Institute of Engineers, we are actually related to China, but also we all sort of are working in US. The great country now is our home, right? We used to have the home in China. Now we have a home here, and I myself also, is the first generation immigrant from China. We share everything in common here. So related to this, the current geopolitical environment, where everybody knew that starting about maybe 5-6 years ago, the new U.S.-China relationship sort of came about. Very different than the time about I came to U.S. about 30-some years ago, doing PhD studies in U.S. after having university degrees in China. Very similar to everybody here in the panelists, except I'm a little bit older generation than you are. The environment is very, very different than what we have seen over the past 3 or 4 years, right? Especially after trade war started, in 2000, I think 17, somewhere around there. And there is a little story about this, right? The little story here was that so there's a very famous Microsoft executive many years ago. He used to be my boss, called Kai-Fu Lee. I don't know, you probably heard of him, right? And he actually wrote a book called the AI, AI Power, right? Talking about how US, Chinese AI would take over US. I think in his book. That book was published in 2018. And I actually was the one who actually, I think he checked with me every now and then. At one time, he said, "Oh, it's good that he would like to sell his book to my company, the Citadel in Chicago and New York." So I invited him to give a talk to everybody in my company, and he actually talked about Chinese AI taking over US. And with the right, argument from there. So everybody was asking, saying, "Wow, we now mentioned that was about the kind of the beginning of the trade war between US and China." And so during the dinner time, we share about the kind of impact his book was. At that time, we just say that, well, maybe your book started the trade war, right? Because US saw that China is going to take over, at least in the AI area now, and would you wish not to write that book so that the war wouldn't start? And he basically said that, well, if he knew that the war would start, he probably wouldn't have published. He wouldn't even started writing the book. But that was earlier. He started thinking about writing the book about 2016 and 17, and that was before trade war started. Okay, and then everybody got drunk after the dinner, and then we asked everyone asking him, "What's your next step in your trip?" And he said, "Well, next step is to fly to Washington D.C. to talk to all those brain trust or politicians about about his book, right?" So, but anyway, so that's the kind of the story to say that the current geopolitical environment is very, very different than many years ago that we used to be familiar with. So this are the slides. I took you this slide. I mean, this is a great article on the right hand side, and the author is actually the one who wrote Genius Maker, and this is a great book that just published about 1 year ago. If you haven't got a chance to read that, you probably should read. They talk a little about history of AI, how deep learning entered into corporate world. And then so the author wrote this article called "A U.S. Secret Weapon in AI," maybe Chinese talents, targeting directly to some of the topics that we are concerned about: the new geopolitical environment, how Chinese talents include many of you now. I mean, including 3 of you that we heard your presentation. If we didn't actually have opportunity to come from China to US probably wouldn't have as good AI as nowadays, right? And then he, the author tried to interview me, and my company say, no, you shouldn't be interviewed because all this is political, very sensitive information. But he wrote, put my name there as well, fairly, and this is a great article there. So I'm just to share with you that under this kind of current geopolitical environment, especially with the new US-China relationship, how do you see the role you can play in acquiring and nourishing engineering talents that can benefit both US society and global society? So I would like maybe, I think I threw this question to you guys a while ago. I wonder if you have any thought on that. So who would like to start? I'll ask our panelists first. Maybe Cha, you can start.
All right, so it's a very difficult question. Yeah, I'm definitely one of those who sort of chose to stay in the US after getting my PhD degree. And according to the article, I think there's probably 90% of the Chinese students who came to the US and they choose to stay in the US. I think as a first generation immigrants from China, I definitely would love to see sort of peace between US and China. I think this is actually aligned with the interest of both countries, that there's no sort of not too many conflicts between them. And I think we're in a complicated sort of political situation here that I think due to sort of the big economic cycles and the changing world order, I think sort of we as individuals are thrown sort of into this environment. I do think, it's a personal choice for Chinese students to come to the US to study. And it's also a personal choice whether they would like to stay in the US or return to China. I think thrown sort of into this environment. I do think, it's a personal choice for Chinese students to come to the US to study. And it's also a personal choice whether they would like to stay in the US or return to China. I think sort of Lee's question about how much you can influence the global national relationships between China and the US, I think it's a really, really big question. I don't know how much my own power is really, can make much difference here. From a technology and innovation perspective, I do think whatever technology we develop, like OCR or document understanding, we do develop and work on both, English and Chinese and many, many different languages. But I think everyone in this room have sort of a circle of influence, and the influence mostly composed of people nearby you, be it your family, your friends, your colleagues, and someone close. And so I think from my take, I will sort of be devoted to help in any manner within my circle of influence, so to realize, help them realize their dreams. And so happy to sort of connect with as many as possible sort of people sort of in a similar situation who are passionate about AI, and sort of we share experiences, we share ideas, and hopefully that can make a small difference in terms of improving the relationship between the two countries.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chia, for sharing this. So my view on this is that science and engineering really don't have any boundaries across the board, the countries, right? And that's very important. Whereas if the any government want to limit, immigration policy, that actually happened a few years ago, but now it's getting opening up with the new government. I think it's somewhat healthier than just a few years ago. I think we're very happy to that. So the talents in the world, it's extremely rich. Everybody will benefit if the talent can be more freely flowing back and forth. And then without talking about any political environment, I mean, just from technical, especially for scientific, discovery, right? If one country develop, a certain kind of, vaccine, for example, the whole world will benefit, right? So that's my view. I mean, science and engineering really don't have any boundary. And then there are some organizations that I know, especially, from my investment world, they are very passionate about that topic also. Especially in the financial world, the talents from China, or from other countries, from Europe or from everywhere, it's extremely is important for the global, not just for U.S. society, but also for Chinese society as well as for European societies. Right? The global society all can benefit from talents overflow, flowing from each other, and with the collaboration across different countries, I think the achievement could be much larger than otherwise, and that's kind of view that I'm taking. So I'd like to have maybe Robert, you can share with the your views on this topic if you do have something want to say.
Sure. So honestly, this is as Chia was saying, this is a tricky topic. And the way that you prompted this question is, what can we do? What can we control? I mean, I think there are things that we cannot control. It is like there are things that government policies dictate about how easy it is to come to this country, how easy it is to stay in this country, how attractive it is for people to stay, and how, if we should, persecute professors who have a certain ethnic background. Those are things that I'm sure many of us have views upon, but we honestly don't have a lot of control over. I think in terms of nourishing engineering talent in a way that we can actually control, it's probably independent of geopolitics. It starts with education and mentorship, and actually CIE probably plays a role here, right? I know, like in the first couple of slides at this talk, right, there was youth competitions, mentorship, educational programs, and things like that. Making people here who are, minorities feel welcome, making sure that they have access to some of these programs, I think is great. I think that's something we can all contribute to. The other thing, I think all of us are managers to some degree, and the competition for talent, particularly in tech, is fierce in the US and around the world. And US and Chinese companies actually fight for that same talent pool. But as a manager, I think we can try to retain and nourish the talent by ultimately treating the teams well, right? My philosophy is always that when somebody comes to our team, they're taking a chance on us. They are the bargain is that we need to provide an environment where they can grow, they can feel supported, and they can grow professionally and personally while also making contributions, obviously, to the team and to the company. And we need to create a sense of belonging by appreciating everyone's perspective, like no matter if you're, no matter what background you come from, right? And trying to really take the time to understand their perspective and value that. I think that's, Chao was talking about psychological safety before, right? But these are the things that we can do as managers to make things a little bit better. In terms of acquiring talent, right? I mean, I don't know, but tech and computer vision are pretty tight-knit communities where reputations matter. And the way that you treat people matters quite a bit. But also people come from referrals, they come from, they look at your reputation in terms of the work that you do and what you publish and so on. I think doing good work and making sure that it is available kind of to all of society is something that that I think people will respect. But there's this third part of your question, which is like benefiting U.S. and global society, right? I think ultimately this touches on our own values as people. Like what are these benefits, right? It comes down to picking what you want to work on carefully. There are many ways to benefit society, and there's no right or wrong way to do that. I think it depends on what you believe in. It could be trying to reduce the immediate suffering of people right now, or to inspire through art, or to connect people, or teach people, or spread ideas, and these are all valuable things. But this is a personal choice. I think things that we can do is to remind people that this is a personal and conscious choice that you can make, and as you make decisions in your career, to try to be conscious of that.
Yeah,
but
that's great. Yeah. This is a great answer. Yeah, I really enjoy your comments here. Especially you mentioned that CAE may play even more important role, and three of you are the most important recipients of CAE, right? From Asian American sort of Luminary Award. So all all the things you said, I fully agree. That was great. I just wonder, Richard, you have anything to say about on this topic? Especially your startup company.
Yeah.
You
I
need a
would say
talent
this,
from
right?
China too, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would say this, right? I mean, what do we have in control? We are in the United States of America. The one thing we have in control is our vote.
Yeah.
Vote. We have representatives, Congress people, Senate, they represent us. They should vote. Why do we get a letter from Jay Ansley? Because he needs our vote. It's not because he just sent this letter wasting his time. He probably don't even know who we are, because he wants our vote. So I would say this, right? The Chinese community in America, we are the worst at letting people know our voice. There was only, I think, one congressional people in the entire United States. I think, all of the panelists here, I mean, I would say probably, we all make a tremendous amount of money. I'm not going to say how much, And so put the money where they have a political influence. This is a policy issue. This is a political issue.
Yeah.
And so create PACs that matter. Create PACs that donate to legislators, policymakers, lawmakers that can make these kind of friendly policies, understanding it's not just about geopolitical wars. It's about two different nations, people. How do we bring together? Vote. Go run for office. Go run for local city councils. That's how you make a difference. Rest of it just nice talk, doesn't matter. End of the day, it's about making policies, making laws.
Yeah.
So
great, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm glad to hear the panelists making wonderful comments on this little topic that I have been here. So I got a few other questions. Maybe I throw in one more question, and then I will open up the floor to the audience. So one question that I have is that, given that you have achieved so much great success in your career so far, either through large company or through large company back to small company and getting vacation and come back to another small company, not growing big. If you were to allow to live back about 10 years of life, thinking about maybe 20 years of your life, right? Before, maybe starting from the time before you move, right at the time you move from China to US, what would you choose? Would you choose the same professional path that you have had so far? Or why not? I think Richard gave very good presentation that I don't answer that question. Right? But if you maybe the question is flowing into Cha and Robert. If you want to rethink of your career, would you do the same thing as you have been doing, or do you have other things like a little bit like what Richard is talking about? Throwing a Cha, maybe you can refer back your life to. I throw this question, but you probably thought about that question already.
Maybe Rob can go first this time.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Thanks, Cha. I think in retrospect, I probably would have worked in industry a little bit more before doing a startup. When I started a company, I had to immediately perform just a lot of roles I knew nothing about. For instance, I knew nothing about product management. I had no product sense, right? And having spent time with some amazing product managers afterwards, I feel a little bit embarrassed thinking back of, I wasted certainly a lot of time, not just of myself, but of other people I was leading. And it probably would have gone a little bit smoother, I think, if I learned some of the basics from witnessing other PMs. However, I wouldn't change very much. I think I would definitely not miss doing a startup. This was a very formative experience for me. Richard's story resonates to me, the hunger of building something from the ground up, doing every job that needed to be done to make things happen, right? Whether that was accounting or assembling furniture, or in Richard's case, like putting on doorknobs. I wouldn't miss that. It made who I am. And I probably also would not have missed joining a big company like Meta as well, just learning best practices. And it's also one of the places I feel like I can make the most impact, partly because of its investments in a space I care about.
Yeah, Meta is a great company. Even if the stock drops so much, it's much better time to enter now than just many years ago. But anyway, and how about Cha? You have any?
Yeah.
Retrospect.
I'm the only one who doesn't have any startup experience, and maybe I think in the future someday I'll probably try it. But I think looking back, if you just look back 10, 20 years, I actually think most of sort of the decision I have made in my life, in particular sort of career decision, are relatively simple. I think when I sort of got my PhD degree, I got two offers, one from Microsoft and one from NVIDIA. Both are really great companies. But given that I was a PhD fresh out, I had a dream at a certain point that I probably should do a faculty. So I think MSR is a very rational choice. I think it's one of the best research labs at that time. And I think I'll be making the same decision sort of between Microsoft and NVIDIA. I think, but both companies has done really well. Sometimes it's intriguing now that I'm in the sort of a engineering side of Microsoft. What happened if I was in NVIDIA earlier, and if I had been engineering side much longer, what happened? But I guess that's probably not going to be too much helpful. So I think for me, it's most likely it's going to.
That's great. Yeah. And then Richard, your presentation really addressed the issue, head on, right? But maybe it's have even more thought after you read that question. Maybe you can have can be fine another time. Start a new company. Well, I just want to make you speak a little bit more about besides what your presentation. Any other thought about this kind of question? Retrospective. Would you do what you have been doing now?
Yeah, I would. The only thing is I wish I could have learned coding when I was much younger. That's the only thing I would say. Yeah, that's the only difference I would make. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I think your story is very interesting. When you decide to go back to school, MIT. Actually, I took about 3 classes at Sloan School while I was doing sabbatical. Many years ago when I was a professor. It's wonderful. One of the lecturers, professor class I took is negotiation, and the person who taught that class actually was involved in negotiation between Soviet Union and U.S. during the nuclear war time, in 1960s. It's just wonderful. So I just wonder, when you decide to go back to school, what kind of thought that went through your mind when you decide to go back to school, after so many wonderful years in industry?
Yeah, thank you. I think I was just at a point of my career where I start to deal with challenges, becomes very complex and complicated business issues, organization capabilities, strategy, and there are just so many things. You know, society is moving so fast. AI, artificial intelligence. They're just things are moving so fast, and I start to deal with issues where I can, you know, when you're dealing with something, you can feel the forces, you can feel the pinpoints, but you don't have a language to describe it. I don't have a framework to quite help me to think it through. I was looking for that, and that's when I realized, you know what, I was at the tip of my capabilities in solving complex problems. I need to go somewhere that can help me to give me the model and the frameworks for that. And then when I went to MIT, I think one of the key things was just incredible. Everything that I've been thinking about, everything I've been struggling with, it was exactly addressing all of those challenges from people, organizations, strategy, AI, and it had a framework. MIT had a framework for literally anything and everything I think of. You know, the staff are outstanding. You know, my professor on digital currency, now he was teaching digital currency, blockchain, and now he's he got appointed by Biden to become the Security and Exchange Commissioner. So right now he is setting the digital currency policy for the nation, for the United States. And so you get to meet policymakers and just incredible classmates from all different backgrounds. And so that was really what it is. I just felt I got to a place where I feel I'm stuck in solving problems. I can feel the forces, but I don't have the language or the framework to think it through. That's when I realized, you know what, I need to go back to upskill myself, to make myself better. Yeah.
Right. Never stop learning, right? That's one of the lessons
Exactly.
you do. That's,
Yep.
you know, one of the things you can do when you have retrospective. And then that's the if I love to ask one more question here, because in your presentation I heard that the finance seemed to do well during 2014, right? And then your board decided to to fire you. That's a very different thing. Steve Jobs got fired by Apple's board, in early days, right? And so what happened there? You know, when I look at this, why evaluate the company, for investment, I just couldn't understand why.
Yeah, because we have two different views. My view was about we are in the hyper growth mode. We have to dominate the space. We have to grow, dominate space. And at the time, we were bootstrapped. It didn't raise a single dollar, right? It was a few guys come together, being like, hey, let's do this together back against the wall. So we had no cash. And so we're in the hyper growth mode. You invest all your cash flow into growth. So you're running very thin. You're running very thin. And the other view was like, you know, we don't need to do that. We are good right now. Let's be comfortable. Let's invest more money on the cash flow so we don't have to risk that company that much. It was really that tension, diversify the investment strategy and the expansion strategy. That's why I was like, you know what? It just didn't quite work. It just constantly tension around that. That was a big difference.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's a very different than the old days, right? So the reason is really diverging opinions of the founder and the board members, right? That's common. Yeah. Okay, that's great to know. So Fei, do you have anything you want to say before we engage in the next phase of the Q&A?
I think we actually
running out of time. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're running out of time, and there isn't any audience question that's posted so far, unless any. I guess you can unmute yourself if you have any questions from the audience.
Yes, I do have a question. Hi, this is Aaron, and I came to the States like 5 years ago as an international student, and I'm now leading a small team at Too Simple, an autonomous trucking company. Thanks for the inspiring stories. I'm really glad that I find this community, because like one of the issues for like my peers was that it could get some boring when like the topics among some of my peers always about like housing price or like company perks. That's like where new grads always interesting. So I have a question specifically for Richard, and like a question generally for three panelists. So I guess like Robert and Chard don't have to probably like worry about too much, but like as a non-big name, and because I started interviewing like people and hiring people, some of the talents I have ever met like ended up with like going to the big names. So how to like attract top talents, and how to find like people with like a real passions and enthusiasm in this industry, and persuade them to like stay with you. And like the general question is like, because senior engineers might not have this issue, but for like a junior engineer, especially for new master grads or bachelor grads, how could we provide an environment where they can like behave professionally as soon as possible? Thanks.
Yeah, any one of the three can answer that question. Maybe Cha, how about you start? Yeah, it sounds like you'll be the best
I thought the
person to
question was geared towards Richard, because, but
okay. Yeah, okay.
I can make
Yeah.
some comments first. I think talent today is definitely, it's a very challenging environment. Companies are paying crazy for sort of grabbing talents from others, and it's really difficult. Even you have some ideal candidate coming in, sort of interview, you end up with multiple competing offers, and it's very difficult to win sort of in terms of getting the talent. I think most of the time, well, on one side, of course, you can raise sort of your salary, your stock bonus, etc., and just to trying to compete on the salary side. But then I think there's also the side of telling a really good story about what your team is working on, and be able to sell a vision that hopefully that you can align with the candidate, and they will be willing for sort of come to your company rather than to other places. I think that's actually, I think, one, just from the other perspective, from the candidate's perspective, I actually think I have a piece of advice for everyone sort of who are still very junior. That is, I think this I heard from Charlie Munger, that, if you're looking for a job to work on, you need to find a job that sort of you are willing to work on without being paid. So assuming that you're not being paid by anything, are you still willing to work on that? And if that's something that you really also, really passionate about, want to work on, I think that's the sort of the right thing, right job for you. So I think it's a two-sided. As a manager, what we can do is, whenever someone comes to our team, we take care of them. We grow them, we help them sort of create impact. I think that's what we really can make a difference.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chad. I would say this, right? My thing is this: is that you can't build a world-class company without world-class people. But this means to different companies different ways. There's no, like, right now it's like the talent market is almost like Seattle housing market, right? Right when people are paying like over $1 million for a house, people are double, tripling salary. It's just crazy right now. But here's the thing: I think at Coding Dojo, I can't compete with Microsoft. I can't compete with Google. But that doesn't mean I cannot find great talent. So here's one thing I think for you to think about is that the type of talent for Coding Dojo that I want to acquire, the strategic human capital that I want to acquire, is either they're in the beginning of their stage of career, they worked at big companies for 2-3 years and they are frustrated, they got the skill sets, and they're like, you know what, I'm just not getting the chance. So I am giving them the chance here at Coding Dojo. I'm giving them a bigger title, bigger scope, and set them free. Right? Because they go to big companies, they're just not going to get that because of bureaucracy, the time they have to serve. So that's one type kind of people. The other type kind of people is just more of maybe they're in the middle of their career who, they want to get promoted, but they're just not getting that promotion. So they come in here, take more of a leadership position to get a scope. A lot of people value more of the scope, the challenge, the title, than salaries, because that's something salary cannot exchange. So the key is about knowing what phase of the experience, in Coding Dojo, we go through 5 different fits, right? Culture fit, chemistry fit, career stage to the job fit, and then there are a couple other we do Ks and whatever. So, but the key is really finding for the people in that phase in that career, where can you find them? How do you write a job rack that they are willing to come here for you? So I would say that's a difference. And the second part of it about your question about, what if professional younger people doesn't behave, you have to be clear about expectations. What is acceptable, what is not. Because in the workforce, you get what you tolerate. If you tolerate a mediocre employee, they will perform mediocrely. And so that's when you cannot tolerate that. And the company's value is being reflected by who you fire, hire, and reward. You have to set a very high bar. If they're just not performing or breathing your values, behaving that way, you have to let them go fast, because it becomes like a disease. Otherwise, it passes on to the organization. It is no return from that. And so that's the key. I'm telling you, the cost is extremely high for a low-performing employee.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, I think your answer is very valuable. Hopefully, it will be valuable for other audience as well.
Thank you again, everyone, for your all the panelists, Rob, Richard, Cha, and our moderator, Lee. Thank you very much for all the participation. I don't want to close abruptly. So if there's any more questions, if the panelists are willing to stay on for a little bit to answer more questions, we can. But I just want to take a moment for take a picture, and also I want to have special thanks, of course, to the CIE organization and some of the people behind the scenes that from planning this seminar. We have Stephen Lee, who's running the video on the background, Howard Wu, who's our communication and vice president of the organization, and Matthew Ma, the president, and Xiaoxi Wang, who's the co-chair for the AALA, who planned this event, and Gina, who's helping us distributing the trophy. And thank you very much all for all the help to make this happen, make this a reality. So Lee, if I can give back to you and see if there's any couple more questions. Again, that's if the panelists can stay. And I'm very happy that we're able to extend this. We have continuous discussion. So if so, much appreciated.
Yeah, I believe I have asked most of the major questions. I don't want to go through all the remaining questions I prepared. But first of all, I want to thank all panelists and the audience who participated in this panel. This is a great learning experience for me as well. And thank everybody. Thank Fei for getting everybody together.
All right, if there's no more questions, we'll close the meeting. Again, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the day.